Good morning. Good morning. I normally say, how's everybody? But I don't think I should do that today. Confined space, middle of London, that sort of thing. Let's just put this over here. There we go. Fantastic. First of all, I'd like to thank Tanya and Helen. Tanya, is she watching?
She will be.
She'll be watching. Hi, Tanya. Miss you too. And also I think there's probably an opportunity to talk about women in procurement. I'd like to do that right now. So I think there was a question that came out from Procurious around who are the top 5, was it, influential people in procurement? I just want to take a moment to tell what mine are, or the top 3 or 4 anyway. And it's very, very good reason. And you'll see, by the way, on this, there's a bit of a rugby thing going through this in homage to Sir Clive Woodward later on. So apologies, but I think it's a good way of, a good parallel, I think. So people in procurement. Years ago, Barbara Cooks from Philips, from a pioneer as a CPO. Zoe Davis from International Airline Groups is one of the most visionary CPOs that I've encountered as well. Lisa Martin from GSK is probably the biggest change driver I've ever seen in terms of a CPO being able to drive change across the organisation. And Sue Moffat, who is a stalwart of government procurement. A lot of people will know Sue, and probably the biggest influence on me in terms of how procurement works, what procurement is meant to be focused on. And she gave me some very good lessons, some of them incredibly hard. And so those would be my top procurement people, along obviously with Tanya and Helen. And the thing about all of them is they did procurement in a different way. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, because that's what we need to be doing collectively, do procurement in a different way. And I took copious notes in there on some of the things you talked about, because there's going to be a constant theme around that change and what we need to be doing collectively to enhance that change. So, yeah, okay, so we've had that. But let's talk about what we're here for. And what we're here for is, I want to explain why the procurement function and the procurement technology vendors need to work incredibly differently now within an ecosystem to be able to meet the agility that you need to meet the challenges today. You have to be agile, going back to Amira's point. And that agility is key. You can't do all this stuff that Amira was talking about without that agility. And the parallel I wanted to use was in rugby. So in rugby back in 1995, it turned professional. So these guys you see playing today and these ladies you see playing today are bigger, faster, stronger. They know where to play, they know how to play, they have the right tactics, they're coached, and it's all because of the data they have now. They're analysing data in fine detail about nutrition, around where they need to be focused in terms of their fitness areas, in terms of the tactics, in terms of their competition. And that enables them, and also, by the way, it's referees as well. Referees have all that data now to make transparent decisions. Although probably Eddie Jones, the current England manager, might not agree that that's a good thing right now. But the reality is that transparency has enabled these guys to be able to be agile and be top of their game. And then I looked at the parallel with procurement. Where are we? Because that agility, as I said, comes from transparency of data, being able to leverage that data to move quickly. And don't forget these challenges we have today. 2 months ago, we were saying sustainability was the most important focus for everybody. I would argue today it's actually ensuring that your supply chain doesn't destroy itself. That's where we are, and that's in the space of 2 months. And I was very lucky to be speaking here last year, and I spoke about this move from a CPO to a Chief Value Officer. Now, I know Diego's going to talk about that later. Where's Diego? Diego, I know you're going to talk about it later on, but I challenged the team here last year. How many of you are going to be Chief Value Officers next year? You can't do that without that shift in the way the procurement operates and how it's perceived within the organizations. Okay, so this agility thing is going to be a key thing that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the session today. All right, this is from the Harvard Business Review. This is pretty damning, right? Because if you want transparency, and this is from a survey of CPOs around the world, Do you recognize this stuff? Now, you may recognize it, but I've been recognizing this for over 20 years. So why the hell have we not moved from this position? Why is the light bulb not on? That's the challenge we've got, right? Because you can't do this shift to the strategic. You can't do this shift in terms of the value that Amira was talking about without data and transparency to be able to make it happen. It's the reality. And this is the results. Goodness me. Lacking the manual processes, the result. Manual processes. Goodness, what are we doing? As a function, what are we doing? And when I say a function, I also mean the technology vendors as well. So I get onto that, right? This is not a you and us, right? This is a team thing. No way to properly analyze data. Really? Lack of visibility, no immediate support. You've got to be joking that this is reality. But it is, clearly. That worries the hell out of me. So what's going wrong? By the way, it's even worse. Look at this. This is from the Deloitte CPO survey last year. Percentage of firms who've completely implemented digital technologies that are not satisfied with the results. Oh my God. I mean, really, what are we doing? It's embarrassing, right? The sourcing, how long have we been doing sourcing for? And 58% of people are satisfied with the results of sourcing. Supply chain risk and compliance, the biggest factor that we're trying to resolve today, and we're not satisfied with what we're trying to achieve. That's damning, guys. So what are we going to do about it? Have I made you all depressed now? All right. This is what we need. We need a different way of working. A different way of working from the buying community and the selling community. A revolution in how we buy and sell. This is what we need. And the reason is, there's this phrase I think a lot of people use when they bought stuff over the years. And you'll recognize this, which is, it's good enough. It's good enough, that'll work. It's good enough. I'm going to argue that with the complexity that we have today, with the issues and measures that you now have, I mean, don't forget, the where you're measured now is completely different to where you were measured, just a few years ago. You have revenue contribution, profit contribution, sustainability targets, in addition to efficiencies. You have a whole range of different metrics you've been challenged to go and achieve. The world is more complex, it's changing all the time. I thought last year was bad in terms of Brexit. Right? It's worse this year. What the hell's going to happen next year? Are we ready for that? Are we ready for this constant change? And so my point is, the complexity that you're trying to resolve and mitigate isn't going to go away. And good enough is no longer good enough. Hashtag, right? Good enough is no longer good enough. We'll take that, we'll own that. But it's true. It's absolutely true. So we need an absolute shift in the way we buy and sell. So let me talk about the selling bit. I'll give you some insight here. It's a shame Clive Woodward isn't here, isn't it? He'd like that. As a vendor community, and I'm sorry, I apologize to other vendors in the room here if you disagree with me, but tough. We've let you down. I've been doing this for 25 years and we've let you down. We've been so focused on only one winner. There is only one winner. There's no room for anybody else. And we've been blinkered in terms of quarterly measurements, annual measurements. And we haven't thought about what the best solution actually is for you guys. That's the reality. Right? If I'm saying it straight here, I can see the look of, oh my God, did he really say that? But it's true. It's true. Right? So the way we sell to you has to be completely different. And it should be different because don't forget, a lot of the complexity that you're now trying to achieve, this good enough issue. Technology is out there. There is some really good technology that does the job and more that'll be future-proof for you moving forward, both from a artificial intelligence, RPA, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Technology is there. But I think one of the problems is it's easy to do a one-stop shop, isn't it? Vendor consolidation, that's good, that ticks the box there. But the reality is, in fact, let me give you another parallel. So Crufts was on Sunday, wasn't it? Who watched Crufts? Yes, good. All right. So people online won't have a clue what I'm talking about. It's a dog show. It's a dog show, right? So big dog show, global dog show. And then you have a best of breed. And you have a number of best of breeds. Okay, so you have the dogs, and in their breeds, you have the best of breed. And then you have an overall winner, which is also a best of breed compared to their peers. You don't have a top dog for everything. That doesn't work. Now, if I use the parallel in the software industry, what we've done is have the head of a poodle, the body of an Alsatian, and the back legs of a Westland Terrier. They can't even touch the floor, let alone bark. So you've created this little Frankenstein. Ain't going to work. It's not going to work, is it? That's what's happened. And it's been driven by vendor consolidation. You have one supplier, that's great. Easy throat to choke. Well, it doesn't matter to have one throat to choke if that throat can't swallow. You can hashtag that as well. Right? That's where we are. So I think, what do we do about it? Well, there's a lot of things already happening. But I need you guys to be aware of it, because you've got to be able to push your suppliers and your vendors into behaving differently to get the best solution for you. They need to be proactively coming to you with broader solutions that are going to meet your business needs. This is not the same, this is sort of shifting away a little bit. We, as a vendor technology community, have a responsibility to work together to give you the best solution. And don't forget, this best of breed thing was really popular back, even when I was in tourist back in 2000s and things. And it was great, and it did the job. But when they started to look at other areas of functionality, it was very difficult to integrate. And that drove this push towards this one-stop shop. But as I said, it didn't work. How could it? The integrations there didn't work. There weren't any things like APIs, and so the integrations made it really complicated to join these things together. Whereas today, Internet of Things, you have all these APIs in place. It's much, much easier to bring different solutions together. Much, much easier. It's a very different model than was happening a good 10 years ago. So, this is an ecosystem. These ecosystems are out there and exist today, with you right in the middle of it. And there's technology around each one of these areas. It's really good. It's really good. But again, you need to really focus on challenging your vendors to come to you with propositions that will enable you to have a solution that meets your strategic outcomes. Because no one platform can deliver everything. And it's already starting to happen, by the way. You're going to hear later on from Simon from Integrity Next. Where are you, Simon? There we are, over there. We're already talking to them about integrating into our solution. We're talking to SAP about linking into their Ariba solution. And that's happening not just with us, that's happening with a bunch of other vendors as well. So get to know what's happening with the ecosystem plays, who's partnering with who, because that's what's happening. Okay, so we're already starting to move on this as a vendor community. You've got to encourage and challenge us to do even more if you want to get the best solutions in place to meet the complexities that you need to resolve to be able to get the agility that you need. Right. It's not just us who are saying this, by the way. Forrester is saying very, very, very similar things. 3 quotes from Duncan Jones here that's coming up. But the bottom line that Duncan's talking about is if you want that innovation to be a reality, then you've got to work within the ecosystem. You've got to work across these different technologies. That's where the innovation comes from. And it reminds me, there was a CEO survey a little while ago. I think it was in the CEO agenda, about 3 years ago. And it recognized, there was an article in it, and it recognized that the CEO, from their perspective, that innovation was not best done internally. Innovation comes externally from your supplier community. Who's closest to suppliers? Procurement. So procurement have an absolute clear advantage in driving innovation and competitive advantage for businesses. right? But to do it effectively, you've got to pick the right stuff. But think about this ecosystem. Right, here comes the contentious bit. How you buy. I can just see it happening. Here we go, right? This looks like an old slide, doesn't it? Because it is, right? How long's this been going on for? When was this built, this process? Was it 30 years ago? Certainly more than 20 years ago, I think. Are we still being dictated to by a process in today's marketplace that was put together 20 odd years ago? Does that sound right to you? It isn't. It isn't. The way we buy has to completely go upside down. That element of change in how we buy has got to happen. This RFP process, you know, I blogged this week that I think average win rate was 5%. It's not a big incentive really for the vendors out there to respond to RFPs, is it? Not really, when you consider the cost that has to happen to do it effectively and to invest effectively in it. It's not a big incentive. But also, if we're really honest, and you guys are really honest as a CPO group of people, how many of those RFPs are based on the fact that you already know who the supplier is that's going to win, and you're running a compliant process? You probably are. You're running a compliant process. Okay? Now, does that really meet the interests of your business in terms of agility? This is the point. You can't afford a 6 to 9 month process and expect to meet the demands of your business from a strategic outcome basis. Outcomes are the most important thing. That's what your business, that's what your stakeholders are after. It's going through a process because you want to show yourself to be compliant in the best interest of your shareholders. I suspect not. And here's the other side, here's the other flip of the coin. Let me give you some insight on what vendors do when they receive an RFP from a qualification perspective. If it's blind and we haven't had any conversation with you at all, that's a big red flag. We'll probably qualify out. If we've not had any conversations in the past, we'll probably qualify out. If we have a lead time that's 2 weeks, we'll probably qualify out. I had an RFP that came. This is absolutely true. I hope no one's listening who was actually part of this RFP, because that'd be really embarrassing. It was received on Friday, and they wanted an intention to respond back on Monday this week. So it came Friday at 5 o'clock, and on Monday morning at 10 o'clock, they wanted a confirmation that we were going to respond. And the reason we were included late was because one of the other suppliers dropped out. Well, that's nice. Thanks very much. So you'd like us to add our name to this, do all the work, so we can meet your compliant process. Thanks very much. No, thank you. We're not going to be responding. And I think what you're going to see from the vendor community is a lot more diligence and a lot more focus in not responding to those types of RFPs. And what I would say is, if you know the supplier that you want to go and work with them. Now here's the bit, here's the challenge, right? Because this is a changing process. If you know the suppliers you want to work with, because you can get to Gartner, you can get to the other analysts, you can get to Forrester, you can get all the information online in a way that never existed before. So 10, 15 years ago, you weren't able to have all that data in your fingertips. Now you have. You know the supplier you want to work with. Go and work with them. Don't run a process just because you have to be compliant. Is that in the interest of your business in terms of agility? No, it's not. And the vendors who you're adding to that process are going to thank you for not proceeding with it. There we are. That's another true statement of fact from a vendor community. We'd thank you for it. Okay? So, what are we going to do? What is stopping us doing all this stuff? That move to the strategic value. I'm telling you what's going to happen if we don't move. That's it. Right? With all the things that are happening, as we said, next year, what's going to happen next year? We don't know. But if you don't move and we don't move, the reality is going to be pretty straightforward. And, you know, when I think about this, I thought about what we could do tomorrow. Let me go back one. There's one point I wanted to raise quickly. Do you guys know a guy called Tom Peters? Wrote In Search of Excellence? Yeah, really, really good guy. I met him a few times, spent a bit of time with him. And he gave me some advice, which I've always taken on board. And he said, Justin, I've never respected anyone who hasn't been fired on principle twice. Now, I'm not saying for one moment they should all get fired, right? But I think it's that challenge, it's that ability to lead within your business, to make the necessary changes, to go and do the sort of stuff that Mira was talking about. It's going to take a leadership position. Now, here's some of the things that I've suggested that you think about tomorrow, or think about today, or debate today. Look at your RFPs that are either in process or in future. And ask yourself this, do they really meet the strategic outcomes that you need to be a successful business? Really? Or are you just doing a vendor consolidation? Or are you just running a process? Because if it's the latter, rip it up and start again. Think differently. You're not helping anybody. You're not helping the vendor community. You're not helping your business. And you're certainly not helping the metrics that you're trying to attain. Challenge the vendor community and to bring an ecosystem proposition to you. And give them space to respond. Give them space to think and talk to other vendors. Focus on visibility of everything you spend, because that visibility piece is so key. And I go on about it, but it's so key, because you can't make those decisions without having the data in place. And that goes, when I say data, I mean data that what you spend with your suppliers across every single category in your business. Now, to me, that means looking at invoices, because that's the source of truth. But look at a way of finding a view on what you spend with your suppliers by category across every category of spend you do in the business. Review how you contract. For those who may be familiar with Tim Cummins, great guy from ICCM, really good guy. Been talking about this for a long time. This is another real shift in mindset. Try and encourage, in the contracting process, the supplier to innovate, to do new things. Reward success. Because if you start focusing on the penalties and penalising for failure, you're going to get a risk-averse response. Whereas actually, if you reward innovation, you're going to get innovation. And innovation is what you're absolutely going to need to be able to compete effectively today and tomorrow. And then lastly, take a leadership position. Encourage your teams. Mira was talking about the new generation coming in. Right? They want to know and do this stuff. They don't want to do the old way of doing stuff. They really don't. They want to do something different that's going to make a tangible difference. You can't do any of the things that we want to go and do. And I want to be clear on this, because procurement, you guys want to do this stuff. You want to be more sustainable. You want to drive sustainability agendas. You want to do procurement with purpose. You want to do that. Not just because it's the right thing to do, and not just because it's good business, but that it feels good. It's a great way of showing value that the procurement function can deliver to the business. But you can't do it. I think it was you who said it. You can't expect different outcomes if you still do the same thing. And I say you, I mean all of us, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a team sport. Right? The vendor community, the buying community, we have to work more collaboratively together with different type of mindsets. Bring us into a room with other people, with other vendors. Like, that's one thing you can do, right? Think about this RFP process. I really don't see the benefit of a lot of that. Not in terms of looking at the right agility to create the right outcome. So leadership position, be strong, be courageous. Some of the stuff that Clive Woodward's going to talk about this afternoon, because I've read his book, so brownie points to me. Right, and you'll hear some of that later on, but it's the courage of your convictions, it's leadership, not just from you guys, but also the vendor community. That's what you should be expecting. That's the responsibility that we have for all. All right, so yeah, that's it for me. Hope that was useful.